Val, quick question. If I was speaking to someone older than me in Spanish, like a neighbor I just met, would I say ¿Cómo estás? Or ¿Cómo está usted?
Definitely. ¿Cómo está usted? That's the polite way. And that's exactly what we are diving into today.
Welcome to Spanglish Friends, the podcast for true beginner Spanish learners.
Hola amigos, I'm Val, your co-host and experienced Spanish teacher from Venezuela.
And I'm Em, your Australian co-host who's been learning Spanish for 10 years.
Our goal is simple, to get you confident listening and speaking in beginner Spanish with content you'll actually use in real-life conversations.
Join the Spanish Friends community by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts and following us on social media at Spanglish_friends. Let's get started.
Comencemos.
Welcome back, amigos, to Spanglish Friends, where we help you get confident speaking in everyday Spanish, one conversation at a time. Today, we're tackling something that can really trip you up when you're learning Spanish. It's the two different ways that you say the word you in Spanish, our 21st episode.
Nuestro episodio 21. Great. Maravilloso. In English, we just say you for everyone, right? Your best friend, a stranger, your teacher. It just doesn't matter.
Yes, but in Spanish, you actually have to consciously choose which you that you're using, okay? Are you in a casual setting or do you need to be formal and polite? This is where usted comes in, okay? USTED, usted. This is our formal you in Spanish compared to tú, which is our informal you, which we've learnt previously.
Knowing when to use usted can really help you sound more natural and respectful in Spanish-speaking countries, amigos.
That's right. So let's break down usted with three key questions to guide our learning today, okay? Pregunta número uno, okay? Why does Spanish have two ways to say you in the first place? Pregunta número dos, when exactly should we use usted? In what context should you be using usted as a beginner learner? And pregunta número tres, what are some common phrases using usted that build on what we've already covered here in the podcast to date so you can actually go out and start using usted?
Amazing. Let's get into it now with a mini conversation so you can hear usted in action right away.
Listen out, friends, for any familiar words this first time around when we play the conversation. Then we're going to break down all the theory that you'll need to know so when we replay this conversation a second time, you can absolutely understand it end to end 100%. For today's conversation, let's imagine that Val and I are just two strangers, okay? We're meeting for the very first time. Listen out for what we say using usted. Ready, Profe Val?
Amiga, sí. Awesome. Let's do it. And comencemos.
Buenas tardes, señorita. ¿Cómo está usted?
Buenas tardes. Muy bien, gracias. ¿Y usted?
Muy bien también. ¿De dónde es usted?
Soy de Venezuela. ¿Y usted?
Ah, soy de Australia.
Genial. ¿Y qué hace hoy?
Hoy trabajo. ¿Y usted?
Yo trabajo también.
How did you go, Spanglish friends? Did you catch any familiar words? Did you hear us using usted? And can you believe in just under 10 minutes, you're going to be able to use usted in a conversation? Let's learn all the theory we need to break down this conversation, starting with our pregunta número uno of the day. Why does Spanish have two ways to say the word you?
And here the quick answer is it's all about formality and respect.
That's right. So in English, we don't really have the way of differentiating you. We can put language around it, but we don't have a specific word or conjugation, right? But in Spanish, it's all about showing manners and knowing social rules when we're using usted.
True. Instead of just saying you to everyone, you choose tú or usted depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, so it's just like adjusting your tone of voice or the words you use in English, but it's actually through the conjugations of the words itself in Spanish. But this brings us to our second question, Val. Pregunta número dos. How do you know and how do you develop your Spanish tingle, your spingle, right, about when you need to use the formal you, usted?
Exactly. When should you use usted and in what context?
Yes. And the easiest rule is anytime you meet someone for the first time, especially if it's a more formal setting, your default should be to use usted to start with.
Okay, so as we said, anytime you meet someone for the first time, you might prefer use usted. Unless you are at a super casual thing like a party with friends, but normally it's safest to go formal at first.
The use of usted can also differ a bit depending on which Spanish speaking country we are talking about.
Definitely am. In places like Colombia, Venezuela, Costa Rica, and Guatemala, usted is used way more often in many, many occasions.
That's right. And in scenarios, even with your parents or grandparents or your partner, which feels a bit unusual, potentially in an English context, but it's a way to show respect.
On the other hand, in places like Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, things are a bit different. People switch to tú or vos really fast, even if you just met, okay? And if we move to Spain, ole, they also use usted as a first meeting.
There are situations in which the use of usted never changes, okay, and is consistent amongst all the different Spanish-speaking countries. Is that right, Prof. Val?
That's right, that's right. Like when you're speaking to university professors, doctors, older community members, or waiters in a restaurant, you wouldn't say tú, okay? You wouldn't change, would be always usted to those people. For example, saying tú to a doctor, no, that would feel too casual.
Yeah, it's a way to convey your respect. So in summary, we've got 3 different times you should be using usted. When you're meeting people for the first time, it should be your default. When you're trying to convey respect to people like in professions like doctors, older community members, waiters in a restaurant. And then third, it can be contextual as well, depending on different countries that you're in. Again, there's no need to memorize all the different countries and what they're using when. Those first 2 rules are the biggest tips we can give you for when to default into using usted. Let's move to our pregunta número 3, actually using usted. What are some common questions and sentences that we use with usted?
Exactly. Let's go through some really typical usted phrases you'll hear a lot and more if you're just starting a conversation with someone.
That's right. So back to when we learnt ser and estar, our 2 verbs which means to be, the conjugations with usted are the same as él and ella. We would say usted es and usted está. Okay, they're the same conjugations, but we use it with the pronoun usted, the formal version of you.
For example, the question, ¿Cómo está usted? How are you? In a formal term.
That's right. So instead of saying ¿Cómo estás?, we're saying ¿Cómo está usted?, right? We're asking how are you in that formal way. Another common sentence could be ¿Cómo le va? ¿Cómo le va? Which is a formal way of saying how's it going? Again, respectfully, it's not just how are you going? ¿Cómo vas? We're saying how are you going in a respectful way? ¿Cómo le va?
Then there is ¿Qué hace hoy? What are you doing today?
That's right. We've also got questions like ¿De dónde es? Now, remember we've been asking the question ¿De dónde eres?, which means where are you from in that casual way. You can also ask someone ¿De dónde es? Okay? And this conveys respect using the conjugation for usted, which is es.
Exactamente. Just a quick reminder here, it's totally fine, amigos, if you don't get usted perfect every single time.
That's right. Spanglish friends, I've had plenty of moments where I've started a conversation with someone in Spanish using usted, trying to convey respect to someone who's older. And then halfway through, I catch myself accidentally switching to 2 forms of verbs, adding the es on things or as on things without even thinking. And then I change back to adding an a or an e on the end to usted. So don't worry, it happens.
It happens. And we are going to still appreciate that you're making the effort to be respectful.
Yeah. I mean, the key thing you can always do is ask. So if you're unsure if you should be using usted or tú, you can ask, should I be using tú or should I be using usted? You can always ask this. People are going to not get upset if you mix it up now or again. They know that you're learning, and what really matters is showing that you're trying to speak to someone in their native language, right?
That's true. And that's what language learning is all about. Not getting it perfect, but getting comfortable with it.
All right, awesome, amigos. We have all the theory we need to know about usted to re-listen again to our conversación pequeña, our mini conversation, and understand it in its entirety.
This time, amigos, listen out specifically our use of usted and the conjugations we use, which are different because we are conveying respect. Okay? So let's do it. Comencemos.
Buenas tardes, señorita. ¿Cómo está usted?
Buenas tardes. Muy bien, gracias. ¿Y usted?
Muy bien también. ¿De dónde es usted?
Soy de Venezuela. ¿Y usted?
Ah, soy de Australia.
Genial. ¿Y qué hace hoy?
Hoy trabajo. ¿Y usted?
Yo trabajo también.
All right, let's break down our conversación pequeña line by line.
You began saying, Buenas tardes, señorita. ¿Cómo está usted? That is breaking the sentence down. Good afternoon means Buenas tardes, señorita. And then she asked me, ¿Cómo está usted? How are you? Formally polite.
And Val answered, Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Muy bien, gracias. She said, I'm very well, thank you. And then she asked me in return, which was very polite. She asked, usted, which means and you, keeping it formal.
Then asked me, ¿De dónde es usted? Where are you from? ¿De dónde es usted?
That's right. I asked, where are you from formally? Es usted. And Val replied, soy de Venezuela. Y usted, she asked me too. I'm from Venezuela. And you, again, using the formal connection there.
Finally, responded politely to me saying, Yo soy de Australia. I am from Australia.
Yes, and Val asked me a follow-up question. She said, ¿Y qué hace hoy? ¿Qué hace hoy? Which is, what do you do today? I responded, hoy yo trabajo, which we learnt in previous episodes means today I work. I'm working.
I said, finally, me too. Yo también trabajo. I work too.
That was the end of the conversation using usted. It's such a simple conversation, but great practice and a real example if you're meeting someone for the first time, like a neighbor, someone unknown, if you want to sound polite in a real conversation and make some small talk.
Exactamente. Before we wrap up, we are always creating episodes with you in mind, amigos. We would love your input. What topics do you want us to cover next? Let us know, and we might build a whole episode around your idea.
Right. So let's quickly recap the 3 things we want you to remember from today's episode.
Yes. If you forget everything else, tune in now and remember these 3 things, Spanglish friends. Número 1. Spanish has 2 ways to say you. Tú for informal situations and usted for formal situations. Número 2. Use usted in conversations when meeting someone new or in a formal setting, and when you're wanting to convey respect, for example, with older members of the community, doctors, waiters at a restaurant, and remember that some countries live more formal and use usted more than others. You can always ask what they prefer to use. Número 3. Last one. Learn key phrases like ¿Cómo está usted? How are you? And ¿De dónde es? Where are you from? To keep things polite and natural in Spanish. Remember, amigos, we post a recap every week on our Instagram page, so go check this out and bookmark it for your reference as an easy conversation guide.
Excellent tips, Profe Val. And now on to our reto of the day, our challenge of the week.
Pop in the comments what is the first question you might ask someone when you just met them. Using the formal form of you we have taught you today. You might want to ask where the person comes from, for example. How would you ask this?
That's right. We can't wait to see you practicing question asking using the formal you usted. And spoiler alert, Spanglish friends, before we go, next week we're diving into part 2 of our regular verbs in the present tense in Spanish. Remember, verbs are our action words, our doing words.
That's right, helping you unlock 1,000 more sentences as a beginner. Conjugations with we, you all, and they. So you can start saying things like, we speak English, ask questions like, do they like to dance? Do you all like cheese? Very important question. Do you all like cheese?
That's right. Important questions to be able to ask as a beginner in Spanish. We can't wait. Nos vemos la próxima vez, amigos. We will see you all next time.
Que tengan una maravillosa semana. Have a wonderful week, Spanglish friends, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Spanglish Friends. We are both so proud of the time you're investing to level up your Spanish listening and speaking skills. If you've enjoyed today's episode, follow us and give the show a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Or even better, tell a friend about the show. It's how we can help even more people on their Spanish learning journeys and continue to grow our awesome, supportive community. Don't forget to check out our socials, including Instagram and TikTok at Spanglish_friends for even more beginner Spanish fun. Congratulations on taking another step today towards your Spanish learning goals. Ciao, Spanglish amigos. Until next time. Hasta la próxima, amigos.